for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson. I'm your co-host.
And I'm Katy Steele Baroni, here for Jack Prince.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me again this week.
My pleasure, as usual.
Yeah, and a hello to Jack Prince. Hopefully he'll be returning soon.
Hey, Jack.
And we've got quite a bit to talk about today. We want to talk about the lawsuit against the National Rifle Association. That is some big news coming out of New York State. And we want to talk about the explosion that happened in Beirut, Lebanon, because that was something else. The video is just beyond amazing. Amazing in a bad way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Flashback to Hiroshima when first thing I saw.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got a Hammer Time segment this week. We'll be talking about that in just a little bit as well. Before we get started, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws there. You can find us at the iTunes Store. Do a search for Southpaws under podcasts. Once you found our logo, you found us. Links to our podcast are automatically sent to our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. If you're listening at YouTube, go to youtube.com. Do a search for Southpaws Radio there and make sure you subscribe. And you can listen on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI-FM, Taos, New Mexico, KZGM, Kabul, Missouri. A shout-out to WRWK, Midlothian, Virginia, in the Richmond area, downloaded last week's show. Thank you for joining us this week. And Global Community Radio Channel 1. We're on every Saturday night at 11 p.m., so make sure you check us out there as well. Katie, do you know what Donald Trump says the first thing he sees a Jewish person?
No, Darren, what's he say?
Yo, Semite. In case you missed it, folks, Donald Trump cannot pronounce Yosemite as in Yosemite National Park. He called it Yosemite.
Oh, my.
You told me.
Yeah, I told you the other one that I heard yesterday, and I don't remember which day he said it, but I just saw the video. He made a reference to Thailand, which I really think could have been a Freudian slip if we hadn't seen this so many times from him. It's just a blatant, obvious sign that this man doesn't read. He doesn't read.
Maybe he was thinking about Stormy Daniels when he said that.
Probably. Check out some Thailand.
Yeah, my big complaint about Stormy Daniels is that she always seems to miss her bookings when she's booked at Deja Vu.
I've heard that, yes. She's always booked, but then never shows.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God. Oh, before we get into today's topics, there's another topic I wanted to discuss that there's really no news story about it. Well, there kind of is. And my big beef today is what has happened to making products in this country. Where's all the manufacturing? Yeah, we know manufacturing's gone overseas. It started in 1980 with Ronald Reagan, or 81, I should say. But the reason I ask about this, the Food and Drug Administration has been announcing recalls left and right of hand sanitizer that's been manufactured in Mexico. It started with about 20, then it went up to 50, then it went up to 75. The list, as we are recording today, Friday, August 7th, the list is now at 100 different hand sanitizers manufactured in Mexico using methanol. This is wood alcohol. This is the stuff that they used to make bathtub gin out of during the 20s and 30s during Prohibition. This is what killed people. This is what made people blind.
Wow.
So there's now 100 brands of hand sanitizer, all made in Mexico, that are now being recalled by the Food and Drug Administration because they contain methanol instead of ethanol. Including one brand, I'm going to tell you this, that was sold locally at Meijer stores. So if you have any bottles of Next hand sanitizer, take them back to Meijer and get your refund, because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, do not use it. Who wants to go blind? Nobody.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that brought up this topic, my mom has to take calcium supplements. She's 82 years old. She's in pretty decent health, still remains active to this very day. But she has osteoporosis, and the doctor has told her she needs to take calcium. So she goes to Walmart, or as I like to call them, Scab Mart, yesterday. Well, they're non-union. I hate them. I've hated them for 40 years.
They're the abyss.
Mm-hmm. So went to Scab Mart on Thursday and bought a bottle of calcium. She goes to take some this morning, and she's reading the label, and guess where it's made? China. Not manufactured here, made in China. So before I came here to record the show today, I stopped at the local Meijer store and was looking through the vitamins. Not a single manufacturer of vitamins has calcium that is made totally in the United States using United States ingredients. There was one that was made in China. There were several that there was no country of origin marked, but there were a couple that said made in the USA of products from around the world, but they don't tell you from which countries. And in my research, what little quick research I did before we started recording today, did you know there is no standard from the Food and Drug Administration on country of origin labels? You do not, as a manufacturer of supplements, vitamins, you do not have to put on your label where they come from. The story is from these manufacturers is, well, we source all these different ingredients from all these different countries, so we might be getting this product from this country one week, but we might get it from a different country next week. So they're saying that it's too fluid to be able to list a country of origin.
So my first question, I guess, hearing that is, what about these shutdowns? Is that going to stop manufacturing of the drugs at some point because we're depending on the shipping of these products that we're getting from all over the world? Does that apply to those products? And if the shutdowns don't apply, can you, spread the virus this way by taking, obviously, materials from all over the world and bringing them all together when we're trying to stop the pandemic? So I think those are my first questions, but those are just the first ones.
Yeah. So for those of you that are looking for hand sanitizer, I can tell you two brands to get that are made in the U.S. Purell and Suave.
Oh, okay.
Suave is now making hand sanitizer. They didn't do that before.
Interesting.
Yeah. This was something new because of the pandemic.
Do you know anything about the other? Because I know a ton of the distilleries now are making it, and I'm guessing that they're pretty careful about what they're putting in because they've heard all of this. But
yes, I am assuming that's all going to be U.S. sourced product there.
Okay. And they've got, they put it on the label what they're using too. So
yeah. The big thing is don't buy hand sanitizer that's made in Mexico because it sounds like it's all junk.
Ouch. Yeah, not good.
And now Meijer has a big pallet full of hand sanitizer that's made in China. You think after all of this that I'm going to trust something made over there? No, not going to happen. So if I see Purell on the shelf, I'm buying it. Because I know Purell's been around forever. They've been made in the USA forever. Gotcha. Germex used to have on the label made in the USA. I just looked at some bottles on the shelf at Meijer, and guess what? That made in USA label isn't there anymore on the Germex brand of hand sanitizer.
I see.
So where's it being made?
See, and for me, this is and I guess for everybody, this is kind of the catch-22 with manufacturing of anything, whether you're making soap or hand sanitizer or automobiles, you're going to have industrial waste. So I think that strategically, and not that this is a good thing, what they've been doing is outsourcing to avoid having to get rid of this stuff or being faced with the liability. Unfortunately, that leaves us completely dependent on the rest of the world. And the way we're behaving like petulant children on that stage is definitely not good for any of us.
Yeah, and see, I didn't think about the waste that's manufactured as a result of producing product, but that's a very good point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for mentioning that this morning, because I did not even... That didn't even cross my mind whatsoever.
I think it does, because they push the economic side of manufacturing so much that we feel like we're completely dependent on that money. And I mean, we are to an extent, but we have other things we could be doing, clean energy, agriculture. Like, there's so many other things we could do to supplement that.
Absolutely. Why does it seem like everything we make has to produce some sort of a byproduct that we don't want?
I think because we're probably not supposed to live the way we do.
Even the solar manufacturing now, the solar panels produce toxic chemicals.
I used to work in geothermal, and it was mind-blowing to me how much fuel we were using to install geothermal. I thought just the installations here are making this almost not worth it,
Oh, man. Yeah, it's maddening. It really is. Something else that was kind of maddening was seeing the video that took place earlier in the week of an explosion in Beirut, Lebanon at the port there. I have never seen anything like this.
Nope, not in our lifetime.
Not since watching videos of atomic bomb explosions from the 50s when they were testing above ground. Mm-hmm. But yeah, apparently, according to, and this is Lebanese officials saying this, there was 2.75 kilotons of ammonium nitrate stored in a warehouse. It's been there since 2014. It came across on a large ship. The ship didn't pay the crew. The crew parked the boat, left, said, "We're done. This is your problem now, deal with it." So the boat sat in the harbor for who knows how long. Finally, Lebanese officials decided we need to empty this thing, so they put it in a warehouse there, and it sat for 6 years. Ammonium nitrate is used in fertilizer. This is what Timothy McVeigh used to blow up the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma City and killed 168 people, including children. So this is some powerful stuff here. So they've been sitting on this for 6 years, and they have talked about who's going to take this, where's it going to go. And they had recently talked to port officials and said, okay, you need to move this. This is dangerous stuff. So apparently a neighboring warehouse filled with fireworks caught fire, and it spread to the other one, and as soon as the heat hit to the point that it could combust, this thing produced a huge mushroom cloud. It looked like Hiroshima all over again. We're recording the day after the 75th anniversary of the U.S. dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. I mean, it blew out windows. Last report I saw, 130 people dead. There are dozens missing, probably hundreds missing.
Oh, those numbers are going to keep going up for sure.
Thousands injured. I saw a map of the blast. There were windows that were shattered 15 miles away from the center of the blast. This is how powerful this was.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to picture that happening in Grand Rapids, it would be us and all of our suburbs. It would be, I mean, you're talking Granville, Wyoming, everything obliterated. Yeah. That's...
Yeah. So now Lebanese officials have now detained all the port officials. They're in jail right now. And they're looking at who's going to get prosecuted for this. So
it's going to be interesting. But we know, I mean, from previous situations, if it was more than just a huge issue of negligence, right? Mm-hmm. If it was more than that, we will probably never hear that. It won't be confirmed. We won't see evidence. But we do know. I'll be honest with you. My first thought and this is not based on research or evidence at all. It's based on previous history and what I've read and what I've seen happen in the past. My first thought when I saw what happened was to pull up the map and see exactly where it was.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment I saw the location, I thought, okay, what did Israel do this time? That was my first thought, and that is not my fault. That's Israel's fault. I'm not blaming the Israeli people. I'm blaming the people that are perpetuating this terrorism.
The government.
Horrible. Yes, the leaders, the people that are ordering it, the people that are profiting from it. It's disgusting. It's not what the people want. I mean, for somebody to say that you can't speak ill of Israel without speaking ill of the Jews is to say that people can't speak ill of Donald Trump without speaking ill of the American people, which we all know is a joke. We do not all agree with Donald Trump any more than they agree with what's happening in their countries. So.
Exactly. No, and Netanyahu is facing criminal charges yet again for all sorts of things we've talked about on the show. Just go back into our archives. It's real easy to find. But yeah, that's the big thing is, okay, what's going to happen next? So I guess my feeling is if the Lebanese government thought it was outside forces, you would think they would say something, but they're blaming...
They're in a position also, where it's very interesting to see how they're handling it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we'll keep an eye on that story in the weeks and months to come here, because I got a feeling this is going to be a very long, drawn-out process to try and assign blame for this.
And I truly hope it doesn't end up encapsulating anybody, from this country, which is very possible considering how closely tied we are with their defense systems.
Exactly. Yes. And one thing I want to get to, this story dropped yesterday, and I about fell over. There was an announcement late Wednesday that the Attorney General for the state of New York was going to hold a press conference, but didn't say what it had to do with. Everybody thought that it had to do with some sort of investigation into Donald Trump. So Thursday, the press conference happens, and we have this story. This is Tim Mack writing for National Public Radio. The Attorney General of New York took action Thursday to dissolve the National Rifle Association following an 18-month investigation that found evidence the powerful gun rights group is fraught with fraud and abuse.
Who knew?
Yeah. In Captain Obvious, right? Attorney General Letitia James claims in a lawsuit filed Thursday that she found financial misconduct in the millions of dollars and that it contributed to a loss of more than $64 million over a 3-year period. The suit alleges that top NRA executives misused charitable funds for personal gain, awarded contracts to friends and family members, and provided contracts to former employees to ensure loyalty. Seeking to dissolve the NRA is the most aggressive sanction James could have sought against the not-for-profit organization, which James has jurisdiction over because it is registered in New York. James has a wide range of authorities relating to nonprofits in the state, including the authority to force organizations to cease operations or dissolve. The NRA is all but certain to contest it. The NRA said in a statement that the legal action was political, calling it, quote, a baseless premeditated attack on our organization and the Second Amendment freedoms it fights to defend. We not only will not shrink from this fight, we will confront it and prevail. End of quote. Attorney General James said in a statement, quote, the NRA's influence has been so powerful that the organization went unchecked for decades, while top executives funneled millions into their own pockets. The NRA is fraught with fraud and abuse, which is why today we seek to dissolve the NRA, because no organization is above the law. End of quote. James's complaint names the National Rifle Association as a whole, but also names 4 current and former NRA executives. Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre, General Counsel John Frazier, former Chief Financial Officer Woody Phillips, and former Chief of Staff Joshua Powell. It lists dozens of examples of alleged financial malfeasance, including the use of NRA funds for vacations, private jets, and expensive meals. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Here are some of the allegations against Wayne LaPierre. By the way, Wayne LaPierre is also the chief executive officer of the NRA, as well as executive vice president. He has held the top position at the organization for nearly 30 years. In the Attorney General's lawsuit, he is accused of using charitable funds for personal gain, including a post-employment contract valued at more than $17 million that was not approved by the NRA Board of Directors. The lawsuit also claims that LaPierre received more than $1.2 million in expense reimbursements over 4 years, including gifts for friends, travel expenses, and memberships at golf clubs and hotels. And it alleges that he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on private plane trips, including for extended family when he was not present, traveled to Africa with his wife on a safari gifted by an NRA vendor, and spent more than $3.6 million on luxury black car services and travel consultants in the past 2 years. Those who attempted to blow the whistle on this behavior, the suit claims, were retaliated against by LaPierre. So
I'm surprised they're still alive, to be honest.
Yeah, so
I mean, this is laughable to me because I really want to be a fly on the wall when they read it and saw what was happening, right? Because you know that they were all standing around going, like, looking at each other super confused, like, isn't that what we were supposed to do? And we know we're not above the law. We are the law.
Exactly.
And now I see them going in, and that will be their defense. We weren't hiding any of this. This was how our organization is built. This is how it's supposed to work. And in the end, they will probably win on that basis and be allowed to do it forever. Mm-hmm. Like, that is, maybe I'm just jaded. Yeah. That's how I feel this is going to go out.
Well, I guess we'll see here. Now, some of the allegations against the other executives and former executives. James's lawsuit alleges that Phillips, whose job it was to manage the financial operations of the charitable organization, lied on financial disclosure forms and set up numerous deals to enrich himself and his girlfriend. The New York Attorney General claims that Phillips set up a contract for himself just before he retired and that the package was worth $1.8 million, purportedly for consulting services to the incoming treasurer.
Oh my gosh, he literally paid himself millions to teach the new incoming treasurer the job.
But here's the thing. The incoming treasurer told the New York Attorney General he was not aware of this contract.
Oh, okay.
Phillips also directed a deal worth more than $1 million to his girlfriend. Meanwhile, the Attorney General further alleges that former NRA Chief of Staff Joshua Powell's salary more than tripled a little more than 2 years into his tenure, which started in 2016. He made $250,000 a year, $250,000 when he started. 2 years later, $800,000. Wouldn't you like to get raises like that?
I mean, that's how the local commissioners do it. They give themselves the raises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Powell is also accused of directing charitable funds to be used for the benefit of his family members. The New York Attorney General said that Powell approved of a $5 million consulting contract with the firm McKenna & Associates. That firm, in turn, hired Powell's wife and passed her a $30,000 monthly consulting fee through the NRA. So this is basically money laundering here. Powell also arranged for an NRA vendor to hire his father as a paid photographer, leading to $90,000 in fees for his father, funds that were ultimately billed to the NRA.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General did not allege that NRA General Counsel John Frazier committed financial misconduct, but said that he had failed to comply with board governance procedures, failed to ensure the NRA was in compliance with whistleblower laws, and repeatedly certified false or misleading annual statements by the NRA. So basically, he was just the rubber stamp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it's so much like, it's so similar to the Republican Party in general, you know? And then his son and his daughter and his girlfriend and, oh.
But there's more. Separate from the New York Attorney General's actions Thursday, the District of Columbia Attorney General also sued, this time targeting the NRA Foundation, an independent group incorporated in Washington, D.C. Attorney General Carl A. Racine alleged that the foundation violated local laws by placing the NRA's interest ahead of its own charitable purposes.
That's very rare, but nice to hear.
Yeah. Racine said, quote, charitable organizations function as public trusts, and district law requires them to use their funds to benefit the public, not to support political campaigns, lobbying, or private interests.
That opinion could be huge.
With this lawsuit, we aim to recover donated funds that the NRA Foundation wasted. District nonprofits should be on notice that the Office of the Attorney General will file suit if we find evidence of illegal behavior. End of quote.
That could be very broad, right? If I'm not misinterpreting that goes out to every nonprofit.
Exactly.
Which this is not a rare thing. The NRA is probably the most extreme case, along with the Republican Party, but this is everyday operations. So that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. Even before today's developments, the NRA was in dire financial straits. A secret recording of an NRA board meeting obtained by National Public Radio in April showed Wayne LaPierre telling the audience that the NRA's legal troubles have cost the organization $100 million.
Which is nothing to the NRA. Nothing. We need to cost them more.
According to a recording by a source in the room, LaPierre said, quote, the cost that we bore was probably about $100 million hit in lost revenue and real cost to this association in 2018 and 2019. I mean, that's huge. End of quote.
Not to them.
Yeah.
Pocket change.
Much of this has to do with its legal troubles. Facing congressional inquiries and investigations by multiple state attorneys general, as well as internal whistleblower complaints, the NRA's finances have sagged under the burden of legal costs. In the ongoing litigation between the NRA and Ackerman McQueen, its former public relations firm, a brief filed by the firm on April 15th indicates its belief that the NRA has paid its outside legal counsel over $54 million in the past 2 years. So, once again, the lawyers are the ones making all the money.
Yeah, and this is budgeted into the NRA's pocketbook. You know, it's not like it's a surprise that they're going to have to pay out hundreds of millions in legal fees. They're prepared. That's what they're there for.
But this might hurt Donald Trump. The NRA spent tens of millions of dollars in 2016 to support then-candidate Donald Trump. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this year because of the financial problems. Wouldn't that be nice?
I guess it depends on how well he has been doing his job for them.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, this is just amazing. I couldn't believe it when I saw that on the news.
That is huge. That's really nice to hear any judge give that kind of opinion.
Yeah.
And especially, I love how broad it is. He lays out what the job is of a charitable organization, which is the number one thing being manipulated right now.
Exactly. Oh, boy. I tell you what, let's get into our next segment here. Actually, I want to talk about this. This was a story we didn't get a chance to get to last week, but this is kind of important stuff considering all the protest against police violence. This is from WAVE television, reported by David Manningly, dated July 28th. Faced with a tight budget and rising demands on its 17-officer police department, the city of Alexandria in Campbell County tried something different. Instead of hiring an additional officer and taking on the added expenses of equipping that officer, the police chief at the time hired a social worker to respond in tandem with officers. The goal was to provide expertise and immediately connect people in crisis to needed services. Police social worker Kelly Pompilio said, quote, I'm more the second responder, so the officer responds first. There are times that I do go on scene with the officer, but that's only after it's secured and safe for me to enter. But I try to assist the family in whatever services they need so they don't have to. Whenever they're having a crisis or having a situation where they need law enforcement, they don't have to call 911. End of quote. Pompilio is the first to work a position of her kind in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So this is all brand new stuff. Instead of working at another agency and waiting for a referral from a police department after a crisis, Pompilio works side by side with officers to respond as calls come in. Quote, every day is different. We have no idea what's going to come our way. The main calls are domestic violence, mental health, and substance abuse. End of quote. After 4 years on the job, Pompilio said there has been a significant drop in repeat 911 calls with approximately 15% fewer people going to jail. Now retired, former Alexandria Police Department Chief Mike Ward said the results were immediate both for people in need and taxpayers. Ward said, quote, it was close to a $45,000 to $50,000 annual savings from hiring a police officer the first time to hiring a social worker. They, being the police social workers, started solving problems for people in our community and for our agency that we've never been able to solve before. End of quote. Well, it's not their job. It's not the job of the cops to solve these problems.
Exactly. And they never should be. And that's when I will consider it a win. Right now, what I see happening is police in general are trying to create the narrative that their job is harder because they're being called out to these mental health calls and that they need the social workers to do that. And that this is kind of like a negotiation, right, to defund police because you're bringing the mental health care aspect into it. But in my opinion, it's going to take one incident where one mental health care worker gets hurt. Mm-hmm. And what are they going to do? They're going to arm the mental health care workers like they want to arm the teachers.
Oh, exactly.
And that's more dangerous. Like, a win is when they stop sending police at all to a mental health care call. Because when does the violence happen? It happens upon the initial interaction generally.
I think, like the teachers, though, I think the social workers are going to say no to...
Oh, I've already seen it. I have friends they want nothing to do with going on a 911 call. They don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. Let me continue here. Ward believes the results in Alexandria, a city of less than 10,000, could be replicated in larger cities like Louisville, where officers respond to calls involving mental health, domestic disturbances, and homelessness an average of once every 10 minutes. Pompilio said, quote, Louisville is very big with services. They have lots of things to offer families. It's just a matter of a social worker connecting. End of quote. Well, that's not quite it either.
Mm-mm.
Because you got to take a look. Who's offering the services?
If you're so good with services, if you're so big with services, why aren't you connecting? That's what a service does. It connects to people that need help. So if you're not connecting, you don't have services. You're paying a bunch of people not to do their job.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But it's a system breakdown. It's the whole damn system.
It is. It's a culture. That's what I was just telling, actually, a friend of mine who is a mental health care worker posted something this morning about asking when we were radicalized. And my story was about the first time, one of my first interactions with police. I ran away from home. My mom called the police, and I was 2 doors down at my girlfriend's house. She tried to cover for me, said, oh, no, she's not here. You can look around if you want. And I was hiding in the closet. She didn't realize she was giving them consent to search. She just figured they'd look around and leave, Yeah. But they didn't. They searched.
They of course.
Yeah, and when they opened the door, and mind you, I'm 15 years old. It's a runaway call. I'm 2 doors down at my girlfriend's house. So they opened the door to the closet, and they've got their gun out. And the first words out of the cop, I quote, "That's a good way to get shot."
Oh, lovely.
Like, the problem is the culture. I was a 15-year-old girl with no history of violence. It was a runaway call.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when were they going to send me this mental health care worker? After that interaction?
This is the training the cops get. They're trained to shoot first and ask questions later.
Exactly. And then they tell a kid that literally that's a good way to get, like, wow.
Wow. Let me continue the story here. Alexandria doubled down on its commitment. They now employ 2 full-time social workers to work and respond with its 17 officers. LMPD spokeswoman Jessie Halliday said she was not aware of anyone currently studying the Alexandria model. So this is the Louisville Metropolitan Police. Halliday said, quote, LMPD is always open to hearing about and considering best practices and models that will improve public safety and respond best to community needs. End of quote. No, that's a lie.
That's a lie.
All they're concerned about is getting more weapons, getting armored vehicles, bulletproof vests.
I have to tell you this, Darren. Totally forgot to bring it up, but I saw this week, and I am mind blown. It's right here. It's a local thing. One of my Facebook friends, who I'm not going to name them right now. I didn't realize they were a Facebook friend. I don't know them personally, but they posted, and this person is a local developer, and he posted just a thing on his timeline saying that the city of Kentwood was looking for a security guard. It's going to be a real easy job, he said. All we need is somebody 18 and up, no felonies. We just need you to come in and guard the city building and the employees and make sure that people are wearing their masks. I read this and my head almost exploded. I couldn't even stop myself. I didn't think about who he was or why he would have posted it. I just went on there and I said, wait, what?
Why
don't we employ a police department?
Exactly.
But the police are refusing to do that. So now, guys, we have to pay one of our kids to go out there and enforce the mask policy.
Lovely.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. So just keep an eye out with who's actually working for your city right now and who's doing the cops' job, because I don't think it's the cops.
Yeah. Oh, no. We're always looking at new ways to enhance our law enforcement by diffusing issues.
Yeah.
No, that's not the case, folks. All they are is escalate.
Escalate.
That's how they're trained.
Yep.
The problem is the training, and it starts right at the top from the very beginning.
And the first thing they learn about in their first classes is discretion. And how it relates to their power and how they can't be held accountable. I took the classes. I know it for a fact.
Well, I don't know. I'm just at a loss for words on this. Actually, the best article to read on that, there was a piece published at medium.com a few weeks ago. I think we talked about it on the show, about a cop that admitted he's now a former cop. He quit. He had enough.
Yes. Yep.
He signed it ACAB. All cops are bastards.
Yes.
And he's admitted to being a bastard cop.
Mm-hmm. But he said it's the culture. And if you look at the studies, I mean, it's the guys that are more militarized, that are dressed more like soldiers, that they're more violent. You know, there's direct correlations here to the culture. So,
you know who we should probably get on the show one of these days to talk about police training?
Who's that?
Mark London.
Oh,
the former owner of Sensation Strip Club in Grand Rapids, was an instructor at Grand Rapids Community College for the police department for many, many years.
Okay.
And Mark and I have been friends. I used to work for Mark.
Okay, I don't think I took any of his classes. I did go through the program at CC.
It just all of a sudden popped in my head, hey, we got to contact and call Mark up if I can find him.
That would be great. We should really try to get a hold of him.
I think he's living in Florida now. He's had enough of Michigan. I can't say as I blame him.
But now he's in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God, it just gets better and better from there. Speaking of getting better and better, we have to play the appropriate music.
Stop! Hammer time!
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It's time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week, and we don't have to go very far for this one. This comes out of Leelanau County, Michigan, up in God's country, as they like to call it up there. This is Eric Carlson writing at LeelanauNews.com. This is dated August 5th. Use of the N-word by an elected official of the Leelanau County Road Commission to describe African Americans this week earned a sharp rebuke from the Road Commission chairman. Road Commissioner Tom Eckerly was asked by a fellow commissioner why he was not wearing a face mask at this week's Road Commission meeting, when Eckerly responded, quote, "Well, this whole thing is because of them N-words down in Detroit," end of quote. Road Commission Chairman Bob Joyce quickly interjected, quote, "You can't say that," end of quote. Eckerly's reply, quote, "I can say anything I want. Black Lives Matter has everything to do with taking the country away from us," end of quote. Your eyes just got really big over there.
I just want to explode. I can't with these people, and they just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And why? Why didn't somebody stand up and beat that man up? Like, that's the part that I can't stand. Nobody ever stands up and just beats the crap out of them. And they need to. I would say I'm not a proponent of violence, but in this case, I feel like a point needs to be made.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because they all think the same way up there. They're just not bold enough to say it. My opinion.
But they're getting so bold now, and that's the thing. To see him do that, and then just there's no consequence.
Yeah. Continuing the story, After the room fell silent, Joyce called the meeting to order and an automatic recording of the meeting began. The remote, socially distanced meeting can be heard by the public only by phone. Following the Tuesday meeting, Joyce and 2 other road commission officials who were physically present in the meeting room with Eckerly independently confirmed in phone calls from a newspaper reporter what Eckerly had said. Eckerly's comments were audible to anyone listening in by phone moments before the official meeting started.
Good.
Joyce told a Leelanau Enterprise reporter, quote, "There's just no room for that kind of language here. I won't tolerate any kind of racism in our meeting room or in our organization. Around here, it's all about the content of people's character, not the color of their skin." End of quote. Eckerly was elected in 2018 to a 6-year term on the Leelanau County Road Commission after the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners decided to increase elected membership on the Road Commission from 3 members to 5. A retired farmer and Team Elmer's gravel pit manager, Eckerly had been appearing at Road Commission meetings through much of the preceding year to criticize actions he claimed the Road Commission had taken against a relative. Eckerly's last name happens to be the same as the road on which the Road Commission headquarters is located. So it sounds like this family has deep ties to that community.
Oh, yeah. And it seems that a lot of the commissioners and the gravel companies go all the way back to the original settlers, all over the place.
In November 2018, Eckerly faced a challenge for a seat on the Road Commission from Democrat Garth Greenan, a professional engineer who had years of experience with the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. Also in November 2018, Republican Jim Calhoun was reelected to a 6-year term. Republican Greg Mikowski ran unopposed for the second new seat on the Road Commission. Because, once again, when you get up in the country, when you start hearing the banjos, you slow down. It's all Republican up there. I get it where I live. If you're a Democrat, you don't get elected. Period.
Yep. And that's why in the rural areas, even if you're Democrat, you run as a Republican. It's
Yep, like I said, everybody wants to know, okay, how do I get to where you grew up? I said, well, get on 131, drive north of Grand Rapids. When you start hearing the banjos, slow down. When they get really loud, you're there.
Yeah, I came from up there myself. I know what you mean.
Shortly after the November 2018 election, the Road Commission's top appointed official, Managing Director Dan Wagner, abruptly resigned. The following year, a Road Commission engineer who had previously also served as Managing Director, Jim Johnson, suddenly decided to retire. A new Managing Director was hired by the 5-member Road Commission, Justin Kalensky, abruptly resigned in April after less than a year on the job. Then last month, the Road Commission's longtime financial manager, Joe Niedow, unexpectedly announced his resignation after 18 years in the position. Because of state restrictions resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, no more than 10 people are currently allowed in the Road Commission's meeting room during public meetings. Most of the space is taken up by Road Commission members and staff.
Why isn't it virtual? Sorry.
Because they don't have the technology up there.
Oh,
you can only join by phone.
Stop. They have the technology.
No. Let me just give you the 411 here real quick.
Okay, help me out.
Do you know I cannot get internet at my house? Period. If I want internet, I either have to go through a satellite dish company or I have to go through a company in a town close by that shoots a signal via radio wave off the top of a silo. I'm not joking.
Oh my gosh. See, I believe this because I did grow up north, and I know that we did not get cable lines anywhere near our house to be able to connect to cable until the late 1990s.
The only cable lines in the township that I live in are right around the lake.
Okay, but I mean, why couldn't they do a library? You come to the library, you get on, you do a virtual meet, because at least the libraries have Wi-Fi.
They
right?
probably don't have a library up there. I don't know.
Gosh, but you'd think they could organize some sort of something, and it still wouldn't be fair. I'm not going to say it would be, but it'd be a little bit more open than.
And I've complained, and I'll complain again.
Right.
I've have been with Frontier phone lines. Frontier bought Verizon's landline business. Frontier, when they purchased those landlines from Verizon, told the federal government within 5 years we're going to lay fiber optic cable everywhere because Verizon's landline service is still copper wires. Well, guess what? It's been more than 5 years. I haven't seen any fiber optic cable.
I still don't think that the Frontier Communications thing is a coincidence, considering Frontier Communications Group bought up Blackwater. So I trust none of that.
And here's the other thing. And when I call Frontier and say, okay, you keep sending me ads for $19.99 a month.
Let me get this internet.
High-speed internet. Oh, well, we don't have enough demand in your area to warrant putting fiber optic cable in. Yeah.
That's not what the neighbors said.
Yeah. Let me continue here. Most of the space is taken up by road commission members and staff. Members of the public are only allowed to listen in and offer comment by phone. At this week's socially distant road commission meeting, officials who were physically present said Eckerly was the only person in the room who declined to wear a face mask during the meeting. Because Donald Trump.
Yep.
Those face masks, they cause virus. No, they don't, you idiot. This is the dumbing down of America at its absolute worst. But here's the thing. The Associated Press has now reported on this. One of the things that they said was they couldn't locate a phone number for Tom Eckerly. Well, here's the thing. I found his phone number real easy.
Wow. So they clearly didn't want to.
They just, yeah, exactly. Well, somebody else that found Mr. Eckerly was Interlochen Public Radio, and I have portions of a story. This is Taylor Wisner writing for Interlochen Public Radio from Thursday evening. I'm going to skip a little bit here. Actually, I'll just read it. A public official in Leelanau County acknowledges he used the N-word before a public meeting this week. Road Commissioner Tom Eckerly is facing backlash after saying the racial epithet in what he thought was a private conversation before the regular Road Commission meeting began on Tuesday. The commissioners met in person at the county government building while the public listened to the meeting remotely over the phone. In a call with IPR News, Eckerly said his comments were not meant to be heard by those outside the room. But he did not back down from his words. He said he reacted out of frustration with the racial unrest and violence in American cities, which he said was caused by the Black Lives Matter movement. Asked if he regretted saying the N-word, he doubled down. Quote, "No, I don't regret calling it an N-word. An N-word is an N-word is an N-word. That's not a person whatsoever." End of quote. He went on to say it was the same thing as saying he was German or Polak. Quote, "No, it is not racism." End of quote. Oh, that just...
I mean...
that makes my head hurt.
It's the definition of, dehumanization. Just saying they're not people.
It is.
If you say it over and over and over, repeat it enough, and then people will believe you.
They're not a person.
And that's why people are feeling so empowered to come out and talk the way they are. Like, I think about this, what I'm seeing now, I think about if I were to see that as, like, the person I was as a 7 or 8 year old, you know, it's just mind blowing to me because I feel like that wouldn't have even, and I know that's how we always say it used to be better when it wasn't. Mm-hmm. But, the kid in me, man, just wants to go beat the crap out of all these people.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Eckerly has said that he will not resign from the road commission. Some northern Michigan residents say they were hurt and upset by Eckerly's statements, which were first reported in the Leelanau Enterprise. That was the first story that I read. The group Northern Michigan E3, formerly referred to as the Northern Michigan Anti-Racism Task Force, has encouraged people to call the county and ask for Eckerly's removal from the commission. Marshall Collins, a black man who is a member of the group, says the government officials need to do more than condemn. Quote, "If nothing is done, he has made it okay. So what do I tell my kid who goes to school and someone decides to call him the N-word again?" End of quote. The group says they also want anti-racism training for all northern Michigan elected officials. Well, it sounds like they need it.
Yeah, but I mean...
not that it'll do any good.
That's it. I mean, are we really going to count on that to work? Because these are hateful... It sounds incredibly hateful people. Like, you can't train hate out of somebody.
No. No, you can't legislate it out of them. I'm with you, though. You can punch them in the face. They deserve it.
Right? Maybe that'll shut them up for a minute, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I gave you my thoughts before we started recording. I'd like to see the group known as F*** Around and Find Out to show up on his doorstep, about 1,000 of them armed to the teeth with semi-automatic weapons, and let him try using that word again.
Right. I don't think he would in that case, believe it or not.
No. I think he would cower down, or he'd be screaming over the phone to 911, all these N-words are at my house.
Right, and then, gosh.
Yeah.
In this world, you'd have to worry 911's just going to send him back up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, for Mr. Eckerly, and I use the word Mr. very, very loosely with him, for being a racist piece of garbage, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
That's right. Maybe show some empathy to your fellow human being and stop being a douchebag.
Please.
One can only wish. I don't know. Like I said, this just makes me lose faith in humanity. It does.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we are definitely getting to a point where we have to start questioning everything. And I actually read a quote from Chomsky today, and he was saying that we don't have to, like, there doesn't have to be some big organized thing that we do together to stop this. Like, it's really the little things that we all do, you know? And that kind of gave me a little bit of hope that...
All right. I've got to read you. I just received this breaking news from the New York Times. Oh. I'm just going to read this here. From the Department of Irony. The United States imposed sanctions on officials in China and Hong Kong, including the city's top official, Carrie Lam, over crackdowns on protesters.
What?
This is the same U.S. government that sent federal mercenaries to Portland, Oregon.
Oh my
and
gosh,
now they're saying, we're going to crack down on China. We're going to impose sanctions on them for cracking down on their protesters. But our protesters, we're just going to shoot tear gas and rubber bullets directly at them. Or tear gas canisters. Yeah.
I am so confused by this, and I'm going to have to absorb that before I even try to wrap my head around why he might do that, because I'm you've got me.
Because China bad? Okay.
I don't know. I mean, he says that, and he wants everybody to believe that, but from what I'm seeing, he doesn't think that himself. He wants us to think that. You know what I mean? But he seems to really respect and look up to the way she is running a dictatorship, to be honest.
Yes. I've got a story that I want to get to. I'm going to skip around on it a little bit here. This is Craig Silverman and Ryan Mack writing for BuzzFeed News. This is dated August 6th. I'm going to read the headline, and then I'm going to skip around the story a little bit. The headline reads, Facebook fired an employee who collected evidence of right-wing pages getting preferential treatment. Now, you've heard this from conservatives. They say, oh, but the liberals. Facebook loves the liberals. They get all sorts of bias. We get censored by Facebook. Well, that's not necessarily the case here, because BuzzFeed talked to people that worked and used to work at Facebook and have determined this. There is a conservative bias at Facebook. And the story's on our official Facebook page. If you want to read it in its entirety, go to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. Apparently, there was an all-hands meeting recently, just within the last couple of weeks. I'll read here. Zuckerberg's remarks came amid growing internal concerns about the company's competence in handling misinformation and the precautions it is taking to ensure its platform isn't used to disrupt or mislead ahead of the U.S. presidential election. Though Facebook says it has committed more money and resources to avoid repeating its failures during the 2016 election, some employees believe it isn't enough Donald Trump has already spent months raising questions about the legitimacy of the upcoming 2020 election, spreading misinformation about mail-in ballots, and declining to say if he'd accept the possibility of losing to Democratic nominee Joe Biden in November. In July, Trump told Fox propaganda channel he wasn't sure if he'd concede to Biden, casting doubt on whether there would be a peaceful transition of power if Biden wins the election. Trump said, quote, "I have to see. I'm not just going to say yes, I'm not going to say no." End of quote.
Okay, so that's terrifying. I have to jump back to that story we just discussed and tie it into this right now.
Yeah.
Because the last paragraph, I just read it, and here's what it says.
Yeah.
The sanctions, regarding the sanctions that Trump has just imposed on China, just within the last 5 minutes apparently, because of their crackdown on protesters. The sanctions allow the United States to seize any property that designated officials may have in the United States, though it is unclear whether any of them have any assets subject to seizure.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like he wants whatever they have here, which I would guess has to do with security, technology, and defense materials, and possibly to use them against our own protesters.
Possibly. But going back to this BuzzFeed story, in this article, it says that a Facebook employee, I'll read this here. On July 22nd, a Facebook employee posted a message to the company's internal misinformation policy group noting that some information strikes against Breitbart, which is a conservative propaganda channel of its own, I guess, had been cleared by someone at Facebook seemingly acting on the publication's behalf. The employee wrote, quote, "A Breitbart escalation marked urgent end of day was resolved on the same day with all misinformation strikes against Breitbart's page and against their domain cleared without explanation." The same employee said a partly false rating applied to an Instagram post from Charlie Kirk, who, by the way, is going to be speaking in town in the next couple of weeks, was flagged for priority escalation by Joel Kaplan, the company's vice president of global public policy. Kaplan once served in George W. Bush's administration and drew criticism for publicly supporting Brett Kavanaugh's controversial nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court. So what they did is they ended up firing this employee that brought this up. And now other employees are scared to talk about it for afraid of retaliation.
Which is a big part. Now that it's not just the media that they have to silence, they have to silence, the social media too, to keep all the propaganda working properly. Yeah,
exactly. We're just about out of time for this week. One story that you should also get to on our official Facebook page. Ken Klippenstein writes this for The Nation. The headline reads, "Homeland Security is quietly tying Antifa to foreign powers." So here we go again with the whole Antifa. Antifa is bad. No, it ain't, folks. If you hate fascism, you are Antifa.
This is a repeat of the Red Scare. Okay?
It is.
This is an exact repeat of the Red Scare. Go back and look at what they were doing in the 1919, 1920.
Exactly. Yeah, so make sure you check out those stories on our official Facebook page if you get time. And speaking of time, we are out of time for this week. This hour just goes by so fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, we can't keep up with the weeks worth of news in an hour.
Exactly. Well, we'll be back next week with more fun and hijinks. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Katy Steele Baroni.
For Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment, and please take care of each other.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.